And so now meeting is now
It's,
live?
well, it's preparing to live stream the meeting. So
Okay.
we are getting there.
I'm getting a message that says meeting is now streaming live on YouTube.
All right.
Do you have a URL there, a link to watch the meeting? I'm getting a message that says meeting is now streaming live on YouTube.
Okay.
Do you have a URL there?
I do. I'm gonna put that in our.
I'm getting a message that says meeting is now streaming live on YouTube.
Okay.
Do you have a URL?
I do. I'm gonna put that in our.
I'm getting a message that says meeting is now streaming live on YouTube. Okay.
We have a ton of feedback, so this is not good. All right. Are we okay? Do you know? When I bump back and forth between, right now I'm looking, it says it's live on YouTube, but I don't think it is. It is? All right. Well, good afternoon. Sorry for the technical difficulties. And are we good to go?
I believe so. I'm going to disconnect.
All right. Thank you. Well, good afternoon, State Fair Community College employees and guests, because this is live on YouTube now on the college's YouTube channel. We had some technical difficulties, just blame it on the operator here being inexperienced and kind of doing this for the first time. This afternoon, we have our deans of academic programs and also our vice president for academics and student support services to answer questions that our employees have asked about the pandemic and our response. So as we get started, and I hope that this is working for folks, we apologize. I'm just going to introduce our deans and ask them to tell us their area of responsibility and then a change that they have made in their leadership as a result of the COVID-19 pandemic. So Jim Cunningham, you are by title our Dean of Academic Affairs. And do you want to start?
Yes, thank you. So academic affairs includes all the general education programs, fine and performing arts, education, criminal justice, agriculture, as well as the library and tutoring services. So quite a range. Perhaps the one change to my leadership during the last 3 or 4 weeks is probably actually a good one. But I've had to learn to give my people more flexibility and more trust than maybe what we had before, because now I'm having to rely on them to do a job from a distance. And sometimes they can't just run down the hall to my office and talk about it. They're kind of thrown out to the fire. So it's a different way of supervising, but they've risen up to the challenge, as I'll talk about before the hour is over. So thank you.
Michael Rogg, you are our Dean of Career and Technical Education and Workforce Innovation. And you're muted at the moment.
There we go.
All right. Good afternoon, Michael.
Thank you. And of course, technical education. Primarily, we're talking about our credit side of technical education, and workforce innovation might be referred to as custom training. So both of those areas deal with placing students into the workplace as quickly as possible. Our focus is on that preparation. And we can break that education down into general related, related, and psychomotor. So we've been able to deliver the related, general related online relatively directly. The biggest challenge is with some of the psychomotor training. So I think the change is we're looking for opportunities that this unexpected change brought about. So we're planning to work with business and industry to make sure our students have access to those jobs, and that our training reflects any changes in the workplace. So
Thank you. And Dr. Rhonda Hutton-Gann, our Dean of Health Sciences. Thanks for joining us, Rhonda, and unmute.
Thank you very much. So in health sciences, we cover microbiology, radiology technologist, dental hygiene, nursing, both year 1 and year 2, health information technology, occupational therapy assistant, medical lab technology, ultrasound, healthcare specialist, medical assisting, and anything that has to do with healthcare, credit or non-credit. So we also cover community health worker. And we are out trying to solve the health science problems of the world.
Thank you, Rhonda. Dr. Bates.
Well, I get the opportunity to work with these 3 deans along with Dr. Autumn Porter. And so I am responsible for the academic and the student services parts of the house. And so I also have direct reports being the extended campus directors and athletics, the instructional design department, and Upward Bound. And so I think, you know, the biggest change obviously is working from home, working, you know, and coming up with how to keep people, how to maintain communication with people working from home. We rely so much on popping into offices, running into people in hallways, those kind of things. So we don't have those kind of informal communication options. So we have to be very conscious of ways to communicate with people, get their input, keep them informed. So that's been the biggest challenge, the biggest change.
One of the reasons we're doing this program today, I think, is just so people can see our faces maybe and make sure that we are still working behind the scenes. And I want to assure everyone we are. Obviously, first and foremost, our concern as we came into this pandemic was to keep our students and our employees as safe as possible through the actions that we were taking, and then to get to a new kind of normal way of working through either teaching or doing the work that all of you as leaders do. So thank you so much. As we've been participating in all kinds of meetings and webinars, these words keep coming up: flexibility, adaptability, agility, patience, care, concern. Those words we are reminded of every day. So I would just ask, what changes have you made in your area that some of those words would apply to? And Jim, I'm going to go back to you if you don't mind kind of sharing first.
That's what I get for logging in first. So, you know, I think we've asked a lot of our faculty and our staff over the last 3 or 4 weeks. I think we're in a position that we're much better than what we thought we'd be at. We were more prepared for this epidemic than we would have ever guessed, because of years and years of practice and preparation. So I appreciate that. You know, I think flexibility is a good one. We've had to take people away from their office and their classroom and put them in a kitchen table or a garage. They have their kids at home with them possibly. They're trying to run a normal life and teach 6, 7, 8 classes now outside of it. So that's one thing. We've taken away tools like online proctoring for exams, and we've added things like Zoom, and it's been a quick turnaround, but I think everybody's adapted well. I just truly think, regardless, all of our people have stepped up, no matter who they work for or what area. They're trying to meet the needs of our students, which is the most important thing. And we hope you're doing it safely and taking care of yourself and your family.
Comments from others that want to add to that? And Jim, I too echo your compliments to our faculty. They have truly been amazing in very short order. They had to move courses online if they hadn't already been doing that. And we can't just thank you all enough, faculty and the staff too, who have helped with that. So any other comments about being flexible or adaptable? Rhonda?
I would echo what Jim said and add to that by saying, I think in a time where we feel like we're in a blender and getting everything all mixed up, I think our faculty and staff are trying to sort out their new norm based upon their where they came from, what background they come from, what kind of environment they may have at home, and some of those other things that we don't know, that when they come to work, it's very segregated and organized. And so we have to commend them for trying to keep some kind of organization and structure in place when it doesn't seem that way at all when we're at home or working from home.
Absolutely. We do have a question, and then Michael, I'll come back to you, but it kind of goes along with this. You know, we've expected students to switch to all alternative format, mainly online learning. And so this question was, can we expect students to participate in class using webcams, et cetera, over the summer? And Dr. Bates, maybe you'd like to take that question.
Yeah, I'll take a shot at that. Thank you for the question, Farah. So we, the COVID team, made a decision to switch to alternative delivery for summer prior to the start of enrollment for the summer, so we could advertise courses the way they were intended to be offered, so students wouldn't think that they're enrolling in an on-ground class and end up in an online class. So as the schedule rolled out, the classes that appeared in the schedule for enrollment reflected the modality that those classes were being offered. So if a student enrolled in a web conferencing class, our expectation is that they have the technical skills, the technical ability to participate in a web conferencing class, which would include a webcam, a microphone, and the appropriate bandwidth for that. The same would go with online classes. We know that that's a challenge for many of our students: connectivity, Wi-Fi access, that kind of thing. But we're being upfront with students that our classes are offered in that format.
Thank you. And Michael, you wanted to add, I think, in something too about flexibility or adaptability of your courses, which you indicated are primarily, you know, hands-on.
And one thing we've asked the instructors to deliver alternative methods of instruction. And what's been impressive is the faculty's focus on not just delivering, you know, how are we going to do it, but maintaining the quality of instruction and integrity of the degree. And they've really reached out to those accrediting agencies, stayed in contact, and made sure that the instruction we deliver is of excellent quality. So that's been impressive to watch.
Thank you. So one of the questions I wondered about is, you know, how are our faculty doing? You are communicating with them on a regular basis. Last week, we had College Council on Friday, and I had a chance to interact with some of the faculty who serve on that. But otherwise, I don't have daily interactions. So how are they doing? Or they can respond via this chat as well. But from your perspective as leaders, Jim, you want to comment? And then, well, Rhonda, go ahead, and then Jim.
I was just going to say, because Jim always takes all the good words, and so I want to jump in there first. I think that what we're seeing is resiliency, and the faculty rolled up their sleeves. They said, let's make this work. And though they were met with some challenges, you know, with technology and software kinds of things, and as Michael said, how to do hands-on certainly impacts my area as well. And so the other thing I would use is innovation. I think resiliency and innovation are the two words I would use to describe how the faculty are doing. They've been very impressive with creating and stepping up to the plate.
Jim or Michael, any comments regarding that as well, how our faculty are doing?
I don't think I would have used those words, Rhonda, but they were great. So, but I think you're exactly right. I think the faculty have stepped up to the challenge. As I said, they're balancing. You know, we always think that teaching online is a little bit easier, but now that we've thrown 7 or 8 at them, it's become more of a challenge. The students have more questions, so they're spending a lot more time answering emails and addressing students' questions, and like I said, balancing it around their family and all the turmoil in the world. So I think I can't be more impressed.
Dr. Bates, go ahead.
Just as we're talking, I probably will never forget the Zoom meeting that I had with faculty on the first day after spring break. And I think there were 140 participants in that Zoom meeting. And so we kind of laid out what those expectations are. And you know what? I didn't get a single complaint. I didn't get a single person that said, no, I'm not going to do this. I can't do this. What are you talking about? You're an idiot. Now, people may be thinking that, but they didn't ever communicate that to me. And that is not the experience that people have had at other institutions. And, you know, I'm fortunate to be able to talk to people at other institutions and assess it where they're at. I know Dr. Anderson does as well. And I've talked to several other people that have had staff that have talked to their counterparts at other institutions. Let me tell you, folks, we're light years ahead of other institutions, not only in terms of our preparation, as Jim talked about later, but in terms of how we responded. And, you know, the reason why is because of the good people we have working at State Fair Community College. Everyone just rolled up their sleeves and got it done. And I'll never forget that. And I'm so proud of that.
You know, we've talked about keeping track of monumental moments during this pandemic. And I know, Brent, that is one that sticks out in your mind. And I would just echo that. Not only have our faculty stepped up to do whatever it takes to help students be successful, our staff have done that as well. And so from the leadership team, truly, we say, if you are watching this, we say thank you in a huge, big way. So we've kind of talked about faculty. How are students responding to the new normal? They're having to juggle everything as well. Many of them are trying to teach their kids from home. They may have been laid off from a job if that has happened to them, but I'm sure that there is a ton of anxiety. And I've only had two since this began, direct communications from either a student and or the parent of a student. And I referred those back out to our student success team. But Jim, we'll let you start on this one.
I've had only one directly. I think it come from a parent as well, and it was a class where Zoom was implemented, and there was just some confusion between the instructor and the students on how that was going to work. But it's worked out very quickly, and to date, knock on wood, I've not heard any other complaints. So I'm either back or.
I think that's a direct attribute of the staff, faculty, and I include navigators as part of that. I think that part of the plan early on was for faculty, staff, and navigators to reach out to the students and to help them understand what was happening and see what kind of problems they were anticipating. And I think we were able to solve a lot of those issues ahead of time. And I know that, at least in my area, and I think this is true everywhere, is that they're continuing to problem solve that as those problems arise.
you know, in our COVID team, and Brent, you may want to speak to this, we've had a lot of conversations about, do students have the technology that they need to be able to learn online? And we know that we had questions about that. And we said we want faculty and staff to be keeping track. We plan to do an assessment when we come out of this so that we can understand how to improve, not only from a leadership standpoint, but from an educational standpoint of what students need to be learning those competencies. How are we doing? So we expect to be following up with not only our faculty and staff, but also students about that. A question that people are wondering about, and Dr. Bates, you said you would answer this, was, you know, we had CTE signing days planned to take place and honor those students and recognize those individuals who want to come into our exciting CTE programs. What has happened with that?
Well, the truth is we haven't figured that out. A incredible amount of work went on in that project from our CTE signing day team, and it was a really great project. And then this happened, and so it threw a wrench into it. So we're reassessing that, looking for other ways to reach those students. It's a challenging time. You know, we kind of had traditional ways to recruit and communicate with students, and those traditional ways no longer exist, at least temporarily. So I know our admissions staff is working on maintaining those relationships with students, following up with them, getting them admitted, and converting them into enrolled students with the help of the navigators. So we've got a whole team working on it. It's taken a lot of individual efforts to get that done. So some of those other projects we haven't got figured out, but we are looking at different ways to communicate. We're using social media and other techniques to keep that relationship alive with our potential students.
One of the questions that's been asked of us to answer is, when do we anticipate making a decision to open campus offices? And that kind of goes along with another question, that if remote service work is to continue or extend beyond the summer, will the college use resources beyond Zoom to accommodate learning? So I'm going to kind of tackle the first, and then any of the rest of you can weigh in on the learning aspect. But currently, we are under a stay-at-home order by the governor. We are following the CDC guidelines and looking at what is being recommended not only nationally, but statewide and here in our own region. Obviously, we can see on the news that the pandemic is affecting areas of our country very differently. While New York is having hundreds of deaths every day, you know, we don't hear of even too many cases of confirmed cases in our own communities. That doesn't mean they're not there, they're just not confirmed. So first and foremost, we want to make sure that our community would be safe for individuals to come back and work together. And we kind of would have to have an all clear from individuals for sure on a statewide level from Governor Parson, but then also on a local level. So at this point in time, we're taking it week by week. The COVID team continues to meet weekly, and that decision will come as soon as we feel like we can safely and appropriately make that decision. We anticipate, though, that this may continue for a while. We don't know for sure through toward the end of April. And if we have remote work happening, is there any other plan for any other way to do work besides Zoom? It works pretty well, but obviously every kind of technology and virtual atmosphere has its pluses and minuses. So.
Well, right now our standards, you know, our suite of software that we use are those are the software that we're working with. And, you know, as much as possible, we want to try to normalize our lives. So we have kind of normal processes that we use to implement new software, new technology. So we'll be following those processes. I think, you know, for instance, we have an agenda item on ELT next week about software related to that issue. And so we'll be following those normal processes. We just won't be around the table in Hopkins and having those discussions. I'll be like 3 feet from my refrigerator here and talking with the group on a computer screen. So
I want to let our folks know, I think the meetings have only increased since this pandemic hit, because the Department of Higher Education and Workforce Development, I'm on a weekly call with them via Zoom. Also, the Missouri Community College Association has a weekly COVID pandemic call via Zoom. Obviously, ELT is meeting that way, and many other groups. In fact, a foundation meeting with a potential partner to our new Workforce Innovation Center. We were working in a Zoom meeting that was new to that individual and kind of that team. So I just want folks to know that obviously we're learning technology, some new things too. We had a technical glitch in getting this meeting live to our Facebook employee group, but hey, we're doing it live out there for the whole world to see, I guess you could say. On our YouTube channel. It is nice to be able to connect with people. And I also just want to thank those who are watching. We truly appreciate the fact that you're concerned about, how are we supporting you? And so we had KB who said that he wanted to thank the administration and our faculty on short notice for being able to help our student athletes. We had to make some decisions very quickly. Many of those were living on campus and had to return home. And now they're having to find ways to be successful in their courses, not only for student athletes, but for all of our students. So to all of you, and Jim, I don't know if you want to weigh in on how faculty, what they're hearing from their students. Hopefully, there's some good things, and I know a couple of our faculty have shared that they have gone the extra mile to do Zoom sessions with students, and the students, even students who might not have been verbal in a class to raise their hand and ask a question, are coming on and having one-on-one meetings with their faculty.
Yeah, I think that's very true. From the people I've talked to, we found ways to get into the science labs and record the lab components for people. We're doing studio music classes. They can do one-on-one through Zoom. So we found ways to incorporate different ways to get the students involved. And I think we'll find out in the end that we had probably have more students that liked the experience than probably didn't like it. Doesn't mean they'll want to stick with it, but I think they'll find that we've accommodated them in such a good manner that it turned out to be a good experience for them. And again, that's still our ultimate priority.
One of the questions I think that's been going through all of leadership's mind is this going to change how we operate come fall? Obviously, we hope that we're back together and able to celebrate, and maybe toward sometime in the summer have a social and I say, have some iced tea or something together. But what Dr. Bates, do you want to address, heading into fall? Obviously, right now we opened up summer and fall enrollment yesterday to students. So faculty may be getting questions about how is fall academic programs, are they going to change in any way? And then recruiting as well. Now it's more important than ever that we reach out and connect with those prospective students, because they're wondering, am I going to be able to get the hands-on learning? Am I going to be able to gain the competencies to become certified and licensed in all of our excellent programs?
Well, so I think everybody's rolling ahead right now with the assumption that we're going to be on ground back to normal in the fall. That would be the best case scenario. But unfortunately, we have to prepare for worst case scenario too. So I've charged all of the deans and the directors to start working on contingency plans that if we are not in our regular classrooms in the fall, maybe we are at the start of the fall semester, but when flu season returns, maybe there's a chance that we have to go back to alternative delivery. So what are those options? So they're looking at options to front load in the first 8-week especially those classes that have the hands-on requirement that require being in place in a lab or a studio. What are the options to do that in the first eight weeks? You know, in terms of athletics recruiting, I think those coaches are working towards recruiting for teams for the next year, assuming that everything's going to roll as planned. The first sport to kick off would be soccer, and we had a person watching ask about soccer, what's going to happen with soccer. It really starts working in the summer. So we're just going to have to play that by year. And as Dr. Anderson mentioned, each meeting of our COVID response team, we review the CDC recommendations, the state recommendations, and the local recommendations, and make decisions based on that. So every week we're going to continue doing that. And when folks say, remember what our number one priority was, right? Safety for our faculty and staff, safety for our students. So when we can ensure that people are safe, we're going to be playing soccer again. We're going to be in the machine tool classroom. We're going to be back on ground in government and music and all of those other wonderful programs that we have.
Rhonda, I thought you might want to address, in your area, you have the most certifications, I think, between you and Michael. And what are students having to do to get the competencies? And are any of those certification exams being delayed, or how are those parent organizations reacting to this?
So that's a really good question. Most of all, well, if not all of our accrediting bodies have reached out, and they all have kind of a varying approach on what they're doing to accommodate students in testing. Most of the testing sites right now are shut down, and we anticipate that will be the case for a while yet. Some of them are opening, but on such a slight basis that it really won't run a lot of students through there. So the faculty have been coming up with some very innovative ways to make clinical kind of situations happen, from using a vet's office to clean cats' teeth, to some simulation in nursing and ultrasound, to one of the dentists is now having what they call a dentist corner. So they're Zooming live to the students, creating some information that they haven't really put forth before. There's also video simulations of video recordings of students doing simulation. And in some cases, we've got the second year students teaching the first year students. So there's a wide variety of approaches to how we're trying to make the clinical site thing happen, and keep the students and faculty safe, and try to keep them prepared for their boards come May or June.
Brent, you might want to, thank you, Rhonda, very much. This kind of goes along those same lines. Obviously, criteria for a specific program for accreditation, or criteria to get into and be admitted to our college requires some assessment, some placement, and I know you have a team that has been working on that. Would you speak to that? And then our student services folks did an amazing job to develop an FAQ for students that kind of answers a lot of questions that they may have about the whole process and how can they continue. Their big goal is to get a college degree. How are we helping them?
Well, so one of the consequences of this crisis is there's very few options. There are no options for on-ground assessment testing. So we have required assessment and mandatory placement, and that's tied to the admissions process. So typically our students either have the ACT test, or they have AccuPlacer, or they've met their prerequisite requirements with courses from other colleges. So while we can still take transfer students, many of our students don't have the opportunity to take the ACT or the AccuPlacer. Both of those tests have suspended on-ground testing. So just recently, AccuPlacer has put a new process in place for remote proctoring using Zoom. And so we are in the process of training proctors to proctor AccuPlacer tests for our prospective students. And that's good. But the problem with that is you have to have a webcam. You have to have a computer that's capable of Zooming and doing an assessment at the same time. You have to have a microphone and you have to have a minimum bandwidth. So, so that effectively, if we just left it there, that would mean we would have an admissions requirement of having a web camera, of having a microphone, of having certain bandwidth. So we need some other option besides that. So we have a great team. I don't want to sound Pollyannish. I am an optimist and always try to be positive, but this team has been so impressive that can identifying the problem and let's work out a solution to that. So our English departments and our math departments have stepped up to the plate, and they're working on a process for students to do a self-assessment, and then we'll have a process for placement based on that. So a student will take that self-assessment, they'll go to the navigator, and the navigator will help them make a decision about enrolling in the right class. So that'll cover that small group of students that don't have the webcam, that don't have the bandwidth or the microphone. And so that's a temporary solution. That's not something we're going to go to forever, but it's plugging a hole and it's going to get us through enrollment for the summer and the fall. So my kudos to the team, and especially to the leadership of Amy Schroeder in testing, and Kaylee Hobbs in English, and Kim Miller in mathematics. They've really stepped up to the plate, and I really appreciate their work.
Yeah. Thank you, Jim, to you and your faculty too. I know those primarily are faculty out of your area, and we really appreciate the fact we had all these students we identified were stuck in the admissions pipeline and couldn't get in. And obviously our college wants to be out there serving students, and that's pretty important. So thank you. Michael, you've been sitting back and I wanted to ask you a question. I know that we've talked about being innovative, and there's some training opportunities perhaps that are coming your way. And I thought folks might like to know what kind of opportunity you have found and need to reach out to companies, and what training might the Learning Force be doing, or things in your area.
Absolutely, thank you. Tomorrow we have a meeting scheduled with some of the area manufacturers. We sent out an invitation to those companies that had training delivered by the college previously through the Learning Force, and we began to get almost immediate responses. So we're assembling that group tomorrow. We've got 3 purposes in mind. First, we're going to review the services that Learning Force provides, the training that we provided in the past and can continue to provide. We're going to discuss the placement of students on the job in those essential industries. We hear about some industries laying off, others are still hiring and gearing up because they're an essential industry during this time. Order patterns have changed, so some companies are actually experiencing an increase in work. So we're going to explore with that group the possibility of some on-the-job learning experiences to possibly substitute some of the hands-on that we've actually done in the lab. We hope to shift some of that to the employment site and help those students finish up their degrees. And then, of course, the last thing is, what do we need to change? How is this pandemic going to affect our operations long-term? What do we need to change within our own training programs to make sure students are prepared for work, and to lay out a program of work for the learning force to make sure the area's needs are met and resources are well spent. So we're really looking forward to that meeting. We're getting some participation from some of the leading manufacturers in the area.
Thank you, Michael. Jim, we've been talking regularly in the COVID meetings about the plant sale. Many of us have looked forward to that for quite some time. Rhonda wants to buy a lot of plants. So the question is, you know, how is our horticulture club? What are they doing with those plants? And is there any opportunity for employees to purchase any?
So with a lot of work from Brad Driscoll and Kim Reimel and Polly Grapes, we do have a plan. We got to make it work, but we have a plan. Ideally, we would, through the bookstore's website, we'll be able to let you purchase plants ahead of time and pay for them that way. We'll schedule a pickup time, and we will simply have your plants or your order sending out in the parking lot at a certain time. You'll pull in, pick them up, so it'll be no contact. But we're hoping that we can make that happen very quickly. We'll start with faculty and staff first, and then if we have leftovers, we may open it to the general public, but we will start with our employees first. We think there's some good positive to it. One, it's, you know, it's a food, some of them are food sources, but we think there's some learning opportunities for students in some of those classes to see how the retail world works online. And we hope that, you know, that you all can buy them and take them home and work with your children on, you know, some topics that maybe you normally don't discuss. So it should be coming very soon.
Thank you, Jim. Before we conclude of what's our takeaway here and moving forward, I just want to thank everybody for tuning in. If you've been watching this, employees, we really appreciate the work you're doing. We can't echo that enough. I want to compliment the leadership team that has stepped up in a huge, huge way. They're each reaching out to their respective employees in various ways, and I just want to share one. Dr. Hutton-Gann sends out a morning nurturing notes, and I got to read one of those yesterday and today. And I know all of these individuals before you today are working extremely hard to stay in communication with those that report to them and working through this together. So thank you truly to all of you. Now just kind of conclude, Dr. Bates, do you want to kind of sum up what takeaways or how we're going to come out of this? I think people really want to know, you know, we've responded, our tails were on fire there for a little while. That fire's kind of been put out. We're sort of in a new normal. But as we think about going forward, we've all said that this is an opportunity to maybe incorporate some new things in the way we both teach, learn, and serve our students.
Well, the deans and I had a plan that if there was a tough question, we'd all freeze, like there was some kind of bandwidth issue. So I think I'm going to, I'm just kidding. Thank you, Dr. Anderson, for the kind words, and you read those just like we wrote them for you. So we appreciate that. There's a saying going around that we're using a lot, and I have it written down, so I have to read it because my memory's not that good, but don't let a good crisis go to waste. And so, you know, we're trying to take that to heart. And there are a ton of things that we've learned. I think this may end up making us a better institution. We're going to be better instructionally. We're going to have a chance to test different instructional techniques, different processes, different pedagogy, and learn about new things. You know, we've been pushed out of our comfort zone, and you know, that could be a positive thing. Hopefully that's just temporary. It's not positive, it's a long term. So and I think it's going to help us improve our processes. So, you know, we're working right now to document our business and instructional continuity plans, and then we will be working to examine those when we come out of this thing and improving our business and instructional continuity planning, so we're better prepared for these kind of crises in the future. And in some ways, we're working differently together and creating different relationships, and I think that's going to be positive. I do want to just a little out of topic. There's one question about hey, can we maybe have a class if there's less than 10? And so I don't want to say never, but they're asking about an on-ground class. But remember our goal here, keeping the safety of our faculty and staff and our students. So for that to happen, we'd have to be assured that our faculty and our staff and students would be safe. But from a public health perspective overall, we're trying to support the goal of flatten that curve. So we really want people to stay at home and to not expose or get exposed. And so we're operationally trying to encourage flattening of the curve as well from a public health perspective. So anyway, I don't know if that answered your question. I forgot what your question is
I
now.
think it does. Well,
No.
it was how can we utilize what we're learning right now to make improvements for the future? And I do compliment everybody who provides feedback to this process. We're taking that feedback and using it as leadership and individuals throughout our organization, because obviously we want State Fair Community College to be the very best community college ever, best college ever. One last thing I'm just going to tackle is commencement. You know, it's that end of year celebration that we all look forward to. Me especially, I've been through a number of them, but truly the opportunity to get to shake hands and say congratulations to students is so meaningful. And unfortunately, we've had to cancel the way we were going to do that. And we said, you know, we were canceling the event, but we were going to find a way later to celebrate with students. We haven't fully figured that out yet. We're still looking at options, but I just wanted to let people know. And as students ask you, we do want to celebrate the accomplishment of those students who complete degrees and certificates. And we're going to try to we will figure out a way to make that a celebration for them. And then I would encourage everyone to keep giving us feedback. I will continue to do these opportunities to share information with you. I know people are probably concerned and worried about the budget. We've talked about that a little bit, but as that develops and new information becomes available, that will be going forward. So stay tuned to our Facebook channel, employee Facebook channel. That's one way we're doing that now. We're also putting it out in other ways, but continue to be engaged with us as leadership, and we want to be engaged with you as well. And a remarkable panel of deans and Brent, thank you all so very much. It's 3 o'clock. We're going to end on time.
Thank you, everybody. Keep up the great work. You're a great team.